what's up everybody? It's Lexi D here. Welcome back to my channel. I couldn't let August go by without posting something for y'all. So in this video, I wanted to share with you all my experience having an anxious, preoccupied attachment style. So if you want to hear more about that, then keep watching and let's get started. If you've not heard about attachment styles, really what they are is the way that you interact with people in your life, in particular in romantic settings. And so your attachment style is something that is typically established when it comes to how you were raised and how your childhood and upbringing was. I should put a disclaimer out here that I am not a therapist, psychologist, anything in the mental health world. This is just my experience with having this attachment style, what I have learned through doing my own research. And so I felt like it might be helpful to share with y'all, especially those of you who are dealing with the same thing or dealing with the same symptoms that I was dealing with and didn't have a name for it. Once I learned what my attachment style was, I could finally learn how to heal from it. And so just to share my story, I have a video where I've talked about being the girl who basically did too much, and I'm going to leave a link to that below. I'm also going to leave a link to the video that really resonated with me and helped me uncover that I do have this attachment style. I'll leave a link to that video as well below from another YouTuber. She did a great job of explaining this attachment style. She also explains all the other attachment styles. So really quickly, there's 4 attachment styles. One is anxious, preoccupied. Another is avoidant, emotionally avoidant. Another is fearful, avoidant. And then the 4th one is secure. Hopefully I didn't mess up on the name of the second one. But basically, with the anxious, preoccupied attachment style, in my story, I have been someone in the past who gets very clingy in relationships. I've learned that being able to put a name to what my symptoms were. I've also learned that that comes from a place of having abandonment issues. And so really where it comes from is having an inconsistent attention to my needs. And in particular, I have learned since going through therapy that while I did have my physical needs met, so I never had to worry about where I was going to eat, sleep, I didn't deal with emotional, mental, or physical abuse, I had my basic needs met. I did not have my emotional needs met. I uncovered through therapy that I felt very disconnected from both of my parents. And I don't think it was anything intentional on their side. You know, I just feel like they had, just like everybody in this world has their own attachment styles, their own things that they're going through, their own things that they're not even aware of that they are, you know, that pass on to their children or that affect their children. So I definitely don't feel like my parents had any ill intentions in mind, but I can say that I felt disconnected from them. And I definitely felt like my emotional needs were not met. And so because of that, I have recreated in my adulthood these relationships that are familiar. And so even though it is something that is painful for me, because it is familiar for me to have my emotional needs go unmet, I create or recreate those relationships with the men in my life. And I have seen that happen throughout so many times in my life. I used to try to minimize what I was going through in terms of being the person who was very clingy and needy as being immature. But ever since I learned about this attachment style, I have been able to uncover the shame that comes with having this attachment style. Because truthfully, being someone who is seen as needy or clingy or, you know, borderline stalkerish by calling too much, texting too much, there's a lot of shame around this attachment style. And the way that the American culture is, it is set up for people to be emotionally unavailable. Those are the ones who are seen as the strong ones. Whereas if you are someone who engages with your emotions, it makes you seem weak. And so keeping that in mind, it is something that I have dealt with shame with, around, and I've tried to hide it at times, and it comes out no matter what. I've also learned that this is clearly my attachment style to deal with, in the sense that when I have dealt with partners who are emotionally avoidant, aka emotionally unavailable, this attachment style in me becomes triggered to the max, right? It's kind of like this person is going away from me, and so I am chasing after them. But I have seen this happen with men who I would also deem as having a secure attachment styles, where I would make up this story in my head about how this person was going to leave me, how they weren't that interested in me. That was something I distinctly remember. There was this one guy I was dating, and I felt like at the time he had, and even looking back, he had a secure attachment style. And I just, for whatever reason, like, he would treat me so well, and I had this issue with accepting it and feeling like I was good enough. And I had to learn that it was because it was something that was unfamiliar to me, that I was so used to being in these relationships where I was chasing after the person, that to have somebody who met me, you know, who met me on an equal wavelength and was as interested in me as I was in them, that was so foreign to me that my subconscious was like trying to push it away. And the way that I did that was, you know, going a little, I don't want to use the word crazy, but just going overboard, right? And I felt so much anxiety. I was just waiting for something bad to happen. And eventually that relationship ended. And truthfully, it ended for a very good reason. But it was something that I felt so much shame around how I behaved at times. And I would try to hold myself back. But if you do have this attachment style, you'll notice you're someone, and maybe I should have said this earlier in the video, but the symptoms of this attachment style is being someone who maybe calls too much, maybe texts too much, and when you feel like your partner is leaving you or is, you know, about to leave you, there is this overwhelming amount of emotions that make you want to charge at that person to get them to get them to make you feel better. And I've also learned that with this attachment style, some work to be done is on your inner child, because at least for me, when I start feeling those emotions well up inside of me, it feels like I'm about to have a temper tantrum. And when I explode, it feels like I'm out of control of my emotions, and like I just need this person to soothe me, and I cannot soothe myself. And so that's the next step in this journey, is how to heal from this attachment style, right? Because it doesn't feel good to do these things. For those of you who don't identify with this attachment style, please understand this is not something I am proud of. It's not something that I find joy in. It is not something that I can necessarily just shut off. It is literally the way that I operate, and I have to be very mindful of the situations that I put myself in, of the men that I interact with, or it becomes something that takes over my entire world. Right? Like when something is going wrong with a guy, I have had times where I'm not able to compartmentalize that situation. I bring it into the workplace with me, such that I have so much emotion going on inside of me. And thankfully, I'm someone who can keep my composure, right? You're not going to know anything's going on, but inside it will be this war raging, and it would just be this, I can't wait to get off work so I can hopefully connect to this person and have them self-soothe me. And the exhausting thing about having this attachment style is that it's never ending. That person will never, it is a bottomless pit. If that person tries to soothe you, it is a bottomless pit. It is a continuous cycle. And so for me, I am at a place where I had my last therapy session last week. I go to therapy consistently. And so we were getting into this about attachment styles. And she was asking me about some things that I can do to self-soothe. And my initial reaction was, I have no idea. I have no idea how to calm down the inner child in me that starts going crazy when she feels like she's being abandoned. And if you watch the video that I'm going to have linked below, the woman describing this attachment style, she reads a letter from the perspective of someone who is emotionally avoidant. And essentially in the letter, it says, when I, as an anxious, preoccupied person, have my episodes, it's essentially like I am handing them over a child to raise. And I can see that from the perspective of, if it feels like a temper tantrum I'm having, then the person who I'm looking to soothe me is obviously looking at me as a child to be soothed. And so I'm trying to learn now the strategies and the ways to calm myself down and to come back and be centered. Part of this, I feel like, deals with my relationship with Christ. and seeking him so that he can help me to help myself, and seeking him in a way that reminds me that he's truly all I need, that he's going to supply everything I need, that I don't need to be fearful of being abandoned. Now, that's not to say that I should minimize or deny what I'm feeling, because I've dealt with that before. Sometimes I've wondered if I've been fearful avoidant, which is a mix of being emotionally avoidant and anxious preoccupied, because I even have a video where I talked about being emotionally unavailable, and I just remember having moments where I would just push away what I was feeling and just completely shut it off. And more recently, I've been like, nope, that's not the route to go. And so I would let my emotions flood me. But then it gets to a point where I feel like I'm hijacked. It literally feels like my brain, my body, and everything is hijacked. And until I am calmed down, until I hear from that person who has triggered me, and until I hear from them in a way that soothes me, all bets are off. All bets are off. So I'm working on it. I'm working on how I can better address it, how I can catch it. I know that it is very important when having this attachment style to be mindful of the partners I choose, and to do the work. It's not easy to do the work, right? But I will say that understanding what this was that was happening for me, or happening to me and happening through me, and understanding that this is what it is, having an anxious preoccupied attachment style, has helped me to feel a lot better about it, knowing that there's a name to it, knowing that there's a reason for it, right? Because for a while I felt like there was something wrong with me. I was like, why can I not get out of this? Why am I this type of person? And so also to add to it, I've seen a couple of other videos that mention that it may come from your childhood. It also may come from trauma of past relationships. And so I have had this pattern that I touched on earlier, this pattern of choosing men who are emotionally avoidant, and then tossing in a couple who were secure in their attachment styles, but unfortunately still dealing with having the anxious thoughts, right? Where it's incessant, it's nonstop, and it's very, very draining. And sometimes it gets to the point where I'm like, why am I even doing this? Why am I even trying to seek out relationships if this is how it's going to be? It is truly taxing mentally and physically to be someone who, if you're in a relationship or if you're dating somebody, you think about them incessantly. Now, granted, depending on the partner, it can be worse with some individuals, but you know, after taking note that even with men who were secure in their attachment styles, because one of the things that is mentioned is, if you want to heal from this attachment style, you have to choose someone. One of the things that you have to do is choose someone who has a secure attachment style. But I truthfully feel like, who in their right mind, if they are secure, is going to want to deal with this? I don't even like dealing with it. And the men who I have chose, who have, you know, didn't deal with it. They cut things off because of it, right? So it can be a lot. And if you are someone who identifies with this attachment style, understand that you're not alone in it. Understand that the way through it, I'm learning, is to shed yourself of shame, to understand where it comes from, and to do the work. Heal your inner child. Work on loving yourself. If you're a Christian, work on trusting God more. And all of these things are a lot easier said than done, or I would have done them. Or I would not be having this conversation, because I'd be able to tell you, oh, this is how I overcame having an anxious, preoccupied attachment style. And there are times, don't get me wrong, where I wonder if I'm ever going to truly heal from this, or if this is something I'm just going to have to manage, right? Like, there's certain things that they say physically, like for instance, asthma. I have asthma, I've had it my whole life. It's not something that I think is ever going to go away at this age in life. I would have grown out of it. So it's something that I have to manage. And I do worry sometimes that this is something that I'm going to just have to manage. And I get concerned if it's something that is going to block me from the man that God has for me. But, you know, this is something that I want to be more mindful of when I'm praying to God. Like, hey, explicitly, help me. Help me to help myself. Help me to uncover the things that I am unaware of that I need to work on. Help me uncover the thoughts and the pattern and the behavior patterns that really are not serving me and that really are going against what God has for me. So I want to thank y'all for watching this video. If you have any questions, any comments, feel free to leave those below. And yes, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you can check out when I have my next video. And I'll catch you in my next one. Deuces.